I did not expect Cleetus to launch a video about this car, well, this chassis, but I will tell you right now, he definitely got the wrong version. Now, he'll probably do something really crazy and cool with it, but this is a little side quest hill I'm going to die on, and that's why I've done this, is I believe that this drivetrain is the best modern JDM-like tuner car about to come out and just rock people's worlds. Now, of course, it's hidden within the Charger, and that's a polarizing opinion for some people because that's a muscle car or it's an EV or whatever. I think that the whole point of Dodge having us be involved in this is to show you guys that actually there's a lot more than meets the eye. I came with receipts of why I think that this is absolutely, A, the car that Cleetus should have gotten, but B, why this is about to be a platform that is meant for all of us. It is the 3-liter inline-6 with the 8 HP based 80 RE with an all-wheel drive transfer case. What's really cool is all the years I've been spending trying to make my RX-7 a Pikes Peak level hill climb car, this thing comes with almost all of those sensors built in. For example, this is all-wheel drive. An all-wheel drive system requires steering angle. It requires acceleration, wheel speeds, all of those things. It's already built into it, and it is insanely fast. So the stock ABS system is a brake-by-wire. It's pretty damn good. And more importantly, your wheel speed sensors, I'll show you the data, they can all report so fast, it's identical to my motorsports level data logging. It also actually registers the amount of torque you put into the steering wheel. So you're driving and you turn, it registers the amount of force that you're putting into the wheel, and that's a whole channel that's logged, as well as the amount of angle. It's got the 3x3 G-force sensors. So it has up, down, left, right, front, back, and then also yaw, pitch, and roll, all 6 of those angles, and I got all those data channels out. And this isn't even the high-tech version of the car. It is the Plus, I believe. There's a version that actually has adaptive damping. It does have, on the other hand, adaptive engine mounts. The engine mounts have a little hydraulic line in them that when you turn it on, allows the engine mount to become very soft, so the engine and the drivetrain basically absorbs more of the vibration. So it's moving, but the car is not, so you get a better feel. And then when you turn that thing off, you get back to a standard firmness of engine mount. As this platform opens up and becomes more available for people to use, the data is there to manipulate this car as you see fit. This engine has things that are just built for a lot. And what I mean by that is all of the sensors, all of the boost sensors on this car are 4-bar, well, 5-bar technically. 4-bar meaning 4 bars, 4 atmospheres of pressure, 58 PSI for us of boost that those sensors can read up to and do information with it. Some of the older cars like the RX-7 and whatnot, you get up to, we'll just say 20 some pounds of boost, and then it would just be flat because you've exceeded the sensor's capability. These sensors reading it all the way up to almost 60 pounds of boost. Fuel system. This is a direct injection system, which is one of the reasons I really wanted this, because I want to try that on a rotary. That system, even at idle, is like 2,700 PSI. Why is it so high? Well, it's more efficient. It's kind of like a diesel. It sprays fuel directly into the engine, but it also has to overcome the engine's compression and the cylinder pressure, so you can't have it go backwards into the fuel system. That is very capable. The electronics prevent you from just dropping ethanol in here and running it, but a lot of people are running E30, which is basically a lot of the knock prevention of ethanol, but it's only about 8% more fuel usage. So the system does allow you to get away with that, and it adjusts it. There's no E85 sensor on this. It just simply looks at the oxygen sensors and it says, oh, I'm running a little lean, let me add more fuel, and E30 is allowed in here. And you can make a shit ton of power off of the stock fuel system. Nobody has direct control over it yet. Eventually, obviously, that will all be figured out. On full ethanol, you could probably make at least 700 horsepower on the stock fuel system and have it ice cold. And this is a separate box. It's the ignition box, which isn't ideal for these initial era of tuning. But what this box does is actually so much more. So this has ion sensing current, meaning when the spark occurs, it's actually got a voltmeter, and it's logging the trend of this ionization that's occurring in the cylinder. And what's cool about that is you can actually see peak combustion pressure rise. You can see the ion current, voltage, rise with that. So the amount of logging, amount of information that you can have about what's going on in the most important part of the car is here. And myself and probably a lot of other people are going to figure out ways to make this controllable, because the amount of data you have about keeping that engine happy is there. Now this thing's a massive tank. Privately, I was told that the bottom end is capable of cylinder pressures supporting 1100 horsepower. Ask if a 2J can do that stock. No, absolutely not. And then you talk about the top half of the motor, which I don't know shit about, but what I do know is that it's got variable valve timing for both the intake and the exhaust. And for those of you guys that just like solid numbers, well, you can lock the cams as well. This to me is the mature version of us guys that are in our 30s and 40s who want to relive our tuning days. This gives us that streetable, but also absolutely wild car. Now I gotta go back to my notes because there's still so much more. The transmission is 8 HP based, which is obviously a very powerful, solid transmission. Not built, so I'm gonna show you what the stock capabilities are, but the data between the engine and the transmission, I've cracked it. But it was very difficult to understand, and it's very redundant. But what it does is so magical that I want to tune my cars this way because it leaves nothing on the table. This thing is keeping track of what could be, what is, what would be if you had spark cut, what if you had throttle cut. It's utterly incredible what this is predicting and then what the transmission is requesting. The communication between the two is why this car drives so almost mindlessly, where you just don't even think about it. These are the wastegate control on each of the turbos. There's 2 of them. This would be the perfect thing to connect to a TurboSmart external wastegate and make a little adapter so this thing can sit on there and control the TurboSmart. TurboSmart does that with like BMW stuff, but this is just waiting for control. Now, I don't have control over it. That's a slightly future project. I've kept all of the air conditioning system and they designed it not in the way of anything. I haven't touched the interior at all. I've got CarPlay, I've got all the adaptive cruise control, none of that's been changed. Before we start the rest of the video, I just want to show you that that's why Cleetus should have bought this car. And I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is and make it do all those things and then see if that's why I would want this car. Either way, I get this drivetrain and I was very excited, and this is that little hill that I'm dying on. Bear with me, this is the result. I'll show you what I started with just because it's utterly insane. Really, it's actually ones and zeros turned into hexadecimal 0 through F. I turned that into this. These are all different things that the transmission and the engine are speaking to each other about. I can see the throttle, I can see the pedal. What does the driver expect? So driver demand is very important. When I press the pedal or the brakes, I'm expecting something. These 2 right here look like they're identical, right? Those are 2 redundant models to make sure that the car doesn't mess it up. It's fact checking because your life's in danger if this was to mess up. So see all these purple, blue, red, and white. Those are both making sure that the engine is sending out the right amount of torque and that the transmission is receiving it. Purple and blue is 2 different types of maximums. Now there's actually a green one in there as well that's also the result of the lower of both purple or blue. So it's basically this type of maximum of what the driver's requesting. This type of maximum is a ceiling for the engine and transmission. Here's a total target maximum because it's the lower of both of those. So you actually can't see it. You see the green line really briefly there. It just takes the lower of the 2 and says, okay, that's a real ceiling of that. These are all numbers that could essentially be adjusted if the timing and place was right. And then the white and red are actually what the engine is really producing. So you can see there's that delay where it's, okay, I can have this much, but it's not sure yet if I'm gonna go for that. And so then that's where boost builds and whatnot. It's not lag, it's just the car isn't sure, is that what I'm gonna do? But then it holds right there for a variety of reasons. So I could get that up higher, which is exactly what we're gonna do. And as soon as the car launches, it's not exactly sure what's going on, but it's making sure it's nice and stable. Transmission's gotta do its shit. This is the coolest part here. As it goes across, this is still what the engine could make if the ignition wasn't being cut. So this is actually ignition cut, and if it wasn't cut, what the engine could do at that moment. Because it can always turn ignition cut off, and that's exactly what it does right there. It comes right back. That is being requested by the transmission. The transmission is saying, hey, listen, you're currently at 600 Newton meters of torque, and I need under 300 for this shift. This is boost target, and this is how much the boost adds torque. Down here is the same exact. Those are 2 different models. One's a minus 500, the other one's a times 0.32. It's really weird. They're purposely 2 totally different numbers that need to add up. Tons of other torque stuff, the wheel speed sensors. You can see the all-wheel drive system. You can see when I'm turning and the wheels are hopping. That's how detailed this is. Almost motorsports information that you can find from this car. The transmission itself, when I'm gunning it, this is RPM, it's requesting a shift. So these yellow lines are like, hey, between here and here, cut, do something. This car needs to get ready to shift. And it does a thing called slow torque reduction. and fast torque reduction. The slow torque reduction is like when you move your throttle. That takes time, whereas cutting fuel or cutting spark is immediate. The next time it goes, that's stumbling that motor. And so it starts with slow, and then it says, no, okay, well, let's get shit done. In theory, if you wanted your shifts to be faster with this transmission, you would just shift straight to fast cutting. So that's actually a delay in there. But you can actually see the torque converter moving. You can see the torque converter's torque input. You can see the input of the transmission. That's not the engine RPM. You can actually see RPM of the input, and then that's the RPM of the output of the transmission. The gear ratios, and the gear ratio changes as it's going between gears and clutches are switching. So you can actually see how fast the real shift is occurring. And you can see gears, obviously, all that sort of stuff. And of course, the transmission itself is requesting certain amounts of torque. It says, do not go over this much input torque. It's all in there. And that means it's all modifiable. We are trying to do as OEM plus as possible, knowing from our other Dodge project, this whole front stack is always like a big thing. It's all bolted to each other. It's really nice if you can buy that whole thing all together, but we don't need the heat exchanger. Hoping we pull the heat exchanger out and maybe we can pull this, the AC condenser back, or it gives us the room to push this up. Our intercooler core sits right here. The car curves inward. Our intercooler core is 10 inches and a quarter. And so we can definitely have it right there. There's the bottom of the headlight, so that puts us to right there. So you trace it to the bottom of the headlight, somewhere in there. That'd be perfect. So getting this up an inch is my ideal scenario, and then getting rid of that water to air cooler is even better. We removed tons of stuff out of that bumper, so we definitely have the space to do some really cool stuff. I was talking to Ralph, the design head, absolute legend, and all these panels were on the bottom of the car. He goes, if you take those off, that's where the batteries would sit on the electric version of the car. You never see a car where the frame pinch rail isn't like exposed. They've got these pucks because the whole chassis is way up there, so you can definitely lower this car considerably. Obviously, the drivetrain's meant to be where it's meant, but the rest of the car, way taller because of the battery allotment. Very exciting to take all this off. I really was just trying to get the transmission and all-wheel drive stuff.
That's thick.
Yeah, I like this cast piece for bracing the all-wheel drive. I love that they use CV joints for the front and the rear. Wow, look at that, there you go. There's the front drive shaft. Oh, I never even thought about it. The front axle has to go through the oil pan like a GTR. I love all-wheel drive for this. The front drive shaft being right next to the transmission. It's just such a cool looking thing. I got more work cut out for me, but it's funny, we haven't even gotten to really appreciate the car yet. Oh, that is so much shit. They didn't drive this in like salt. They drove it on a beach. E-gate needs water, turbo needs water, engine has water, engine has oil. The oil return line, thankfully, is basically like a turbo return. And so that'll go all the way down there. We're gonna block off the second turbo's one. So there's our turbo return line. That'll come over and up to somewhere in here where the bottom of the turbo is. So 10AN line, nice and simple. The oil feed comes from back here, and it just goes to a 4AN. And now the hard line goes all the way up to right here, and it bolts into right here. So we are taking that line, and we're gonna fill the tip of it in with weld. Just put an 1/8 inch MPT single hole, make that a 4AN line. And so then the oil feed for the turbo is stock, like location-ish, and it'll come up and sit on the top of the turbo. Cool thing is, literally, that's the water pump. That splits, and all that line has to do is go to the E-gate, and then the other one gonna go up through here for coolant in. So both turbo and water in are gonna be on this side, easy peasy, and then this we'll do a reach around to give us room to be able to take this thing off and on without having AN lines. So that's a vertical bleed system. So I've designed it to mimic that same stock, beautiful setup. and have all the devices bleed and get the air from here and up. So that unfortunately requires Lowe's type hardware. We're gonna make up this part that lets you adapt that to AN lines. Maybe I'll even put it on my website for once. We already have the CAD and everything, and then that'll let you do whatever you want with oil feeding. It's always super complicated to make something simple, and I'm really proud of this setup. And it cost me $60 in hose and hose. That was bad. For $60, it better have been bad. This is all gonna work really, really well. And the reason I went with this size, the 3/8, I have 6AN barbs to 6AN swivels. So then this hose can go between all these fittings and then connect straight into the core of the turbo through the 6AN line. So it'll look clean, but this was a great first place to be. So I can turn the car back on and the oil system flows properly. We are making some huge progress on this car. This is something I've been wanting ever since I saw when Turbo Smart unveiled, basically an adapter that I have dreamed of. This clearly does something that we always end up doing to every damn turbo, and I hate it, is that you cut this flange off and then you wish it was a vibrant clamp. So in this case, Turbo Smart made all that easy for you. So this end can come either as this, if you wanted to still do silicone, or a version where it's the vibrant or Plasma Man. I think there's a third version too. Obviously, they're making it nice and smooth flow for that. And so it's got all the other little things that go in it, that this does something like that. It would be something like this, an O-ring, and then the other one. And of course, you'd lube all that up. So then this would ultimately crush down on these two things that are safe for the O-ring, encapsulating all that inside of here. So simple. I didn't even have to look at the instructions. Well, that gives us our smoothest flow from the turbo to our intercooler piping. No welds, no internal dimension mismatch. Utterly incredible. Now that, as you can tell, is going to put our turbo straight through the brain of the car. We're gonna have to pick it up and turn it on its side and have the boost go straight out there. That should really wrap up the last bit of the question of where the intercooler piping is gonna go. We got a couple sensors that are gonna have to be added on. This one's actually air temp sensor, meant for not just general ambient, but like what temperature is the air going into the turbo. And then manifold pressure, right? But then there's actually boost and pressure. That has to go onto this. I'm gonna have some sort of fuel being sprayed directly into the center of the throttle bodies. My goal midweek is we'll just throw the stock turbo manifolds back on, fire it up, and idle it, and be able to do some tests with my torque modeling. This is huge. So Ryder's got the entire turbo to intake all welded up. Turbo Smart Elbow is absolute game changer for us. So that just goes straight through here, hooks down under there, diffuses into the front mount intercooler, nice wide radiuses, comes back into the throttle body. That's about as clean and straightforward as you can get it, smoothest airflow possible. So no restrictions, that's for damn sure. I'm very happy with that, so I gotta step my game up with oil lines, coolant lines, make it look good. What I think I'm gonna do is cut this, make a connector, and then run these back away, run these little things back and away until somebody like HP Tuners comes up with a way of saying you don't need these things. All this stuff's just like clunky, in the way, and it ruins the sexification of that right there. I honestly can't wait to fire this up. I keep wanting to fire it up. With my record throwing stuff through Turbo Smart Turbos, I should not be firing anything up just yet.